Hi guys, welcome back to the Block on Blocks. This time it's virtual with Ori and Tori from Titl. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nikki. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, always is really. And we've had so many conversations that for me this feels kind of like I already know the answers to all my questions, but I love what you guys are doing and I'm really excited for like more people to learn about it. So why don't we just start with like a brief introduction to what you guys are building at Titl and what you're doing, and maybe to yourselves as well.
Yeah, or go ahead.
Sure. So Tori and I met, I'm going to say like 5 to 6 years ago, when I was working on a project with NFTs trying to transfer ownership of physical assets. And basically, Tori's first question to me was, how do we do this on real estate? How do we find a way to streamline the full transaction and make it as quick as the blockchain operates? And since that day, we've basically been trying to work on what now became Titl. Our first concept was how do we get property ownership on chain, and we ended up with figuring out that a lot of the back end process, the paper processing, the data behind it is all human processed and extremely slow. So we ended up redesigning our company and turning it into what is now Titl. And we've created a AI model that automates the full process of title production and then storing that data on a blockchain to create a unified ledger for the entire US that acts as a land registry, which shockingly doesn't exist.
Yeah. And just to jump in there on Ori's point, currently it goes county by county and it varies county by county. There could be five, six, seven, eight different databases that you're essentially going in to search manually all this different information, mortgage, tax, lien, deed, judgments, etc. It's a very, very manual process. It's a slow process, as Ori mentioned, could take 5 to 7 days, in some cases even longer. So what we do is we do it in sub 8 minutes. We amalgamate all that information. We cross-reference all that information to ensure that the names all connect from the varying documents, the varying databases, etc. And then we take all that information. We are working with title insurance underwriters currently to essentially get title insurance from that information, thus making it the source of truth and storing that source of truth on the blockchain. The ultimate goal is to essentially transact single family homes via the blockchain in a portal like setting where you'll have mortgage broker, title agent, real estate broker, owner log in, and essentially they will be KYC'd, AML'd, click of a button. Everything will transact. Money will go from escrow into each person's bank account. The mortgage will be issued, etc. But as Ori mentioned, we are looking to create a digital unified land registry across the United States, which, as he mentioned, also does not currently exist.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. You know what's really interesting to me is previously, like before getting to know Titl and getting to know what you guys are doing, I feel like my imagination was very limited as to what you can do with this information on chain. And then when I started looking into your different products, you guys have like Titl reports, Titl transfer. It was like, wow, there's so much you can do with this information. So I just want to understand more, I guess, for the audience, what kind of data are you guys collecting and how are you utilizing that to provide different services? Because I know you have like different verticals.
Yeah. So when we started, our first concept was let's get the deed on chain, which we've seen a couple startups already building. The deed, unfortunately, is literally like a 1 or 2 page document that says Joe Schmo owns this house. What it doesn't show you is what kind of mortgage does this person have? Are there any code violations on the house? Are there any permits that have been filed? All the information that you actually need to transfer the ownership, not just the ownership document. So what we do is this is the power of AI is we're capable of sourcing all that information. And that's typically why it takes so long. Because of AI, we're able to scrape and read through all these documents in a matter of minutes. So we're showing you how many liens are on the house? Are there any encumbrances on the plot? Have there been any court filings against the homeowner? Anything on those lines. We can even tell you if they've paid their taxes this year or not. Um, and with that information, like obviously we generate title reports. That's our core business. But we can also tell you when a property is going foreclosure. We can show you if a property is distressed. We can even tell you as like a real estate agent if your house is actually capable of being sold. So we do a lot of that, and because of it, we sell to underwriters, but we also sell to property investors, and we sell to lenders because now they're able to see if a property has taken on a second loan. So if you look back at like 2008, when the real estate market crashed, it was a lot to do with people not being able to track mortgages. It was a house taking a second and third mortgage and unable to make their payments. Because of tech like this, you're actually able to track and update it, and as a lender, actually do mark-to-market analysis on your loans. So there's a whole different array of ways to apply this tech in our product, and because of that, we're starting to test the client base a lot more now.
And not only that, this is very valuable information. It's extremely valuable to, Ori kind of touched on it, mortgage lenders, brokers, even multifamily home buyers, you know, hedge funds that are purchasing real estate, et cetera. Reason being is they have real data or real live data insight into these properties' health. And we're able to sell that data, parse it out, and sell it to various industries, various customers. And it's extremely important and gives those customers the inside edge on purchasing and knowing what's going on in the neighborhood, what's coming up in the neighborhood, stuff like that. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like a dream for a real estate agent to be able to have all this information. It's kind of like having a super powered assistant by your side. So my question is now more towards like the policy side. Where is title available? Like in what states are you able to actually produce these title reports? And how much work does it take to get the data that you need? Because I'm just like assuming that there's a land department that gives you the information about the house, and then probably you would need to get the information about the loans from a separate entity and the tax information from a separate entity. How does that work in the US? And then how do you plan on taking that global in terms of scalability, in terms of getting all this sensitive data from all these different organizations?
Yeah. So to start, all the data we access is public. The primary issue isn't are we allowed to view it, is that can we find it? Is it available online? Which for the majority of states, it is possible to find this information online because the county clerks, the property appraisers, the tax collectors all have most of them have online databases. So it's a massive amount of work for a human to go through this. Like we've compared with a series of big clients who do this manually, and they literally spend 7+ days pulling this information together, which is why you have expensive closing costs, you have delays when it comes to closing. You'll have real estate agents, for example, who will market a property for sale and then get an offer, go to closing, and find out that they can't close because there's a second lien, there's an open permit on the property, there's some kind of issue. And really, that should have been done prior to the property even being listed. But because it costs so much, no one really wants to do it in advance. So we're like our product basically parses through thousands of documents at a time and spits out the information in a really easy way to understand. But in all honesty, it's shocking that we live in a digital age where we claim that everything lives online, that we have AI agents who can answer all of our questions instead of going to a search engine and all this stuff. Yet it takes 7 days to find out if I actually own a house and I can sell it. So that was the premise of why we built this.
And the US is kind of archaic in that sense. You go look globally, and there's countries that have all this information online, readily available already. As we know, Dubai is currently putting all their land registry data on the blockchain. So there are countries that are doing this already. US is, like I said, a step behind in that sense, but we hope to be, the company that spearheads this and brings this to the US legislation. We're working with policymakers. We're working on the policy side of things to ensure that we're able to transact. Because right now, essentially, what we do is we store this information on the blockchain and provide access to people to view this information. But the reality is it cannot transact via the blockchain until you have the government entities and the counties and et cetera have their information on the blockchain so that it can be a true blockchain transaction where we take our information, we send it to the county clerk, it's all verified, viewable, et cetera, via the blockchain. So we are excited. We've been in discussion with governments all over the world to kind of bring this technology to them. And again, we are hoping to expand globally. Obviously, our focus right now is on the United States. State by state, it definitely varies. As already mentioned, a lot of this information is online, but some of it is not. Some of this information, you still have to go to a local courthouse or a government building on a Friday and request this information, basically in packets, sift through this information, extract the data manually, and then give the packet back. So it does allow us to probably operate, I would say, in 80% of the states right now, if not more. I would say around 75% of the total US population we're able to kind of sell our product to via obviously underwriters and other industries. But yeah, we're hoping to be the change in the US to bring everything online and make this as easy as possible.
Yeah. And to add to that, it's funny that we built a product that lives on the blockchain. By definition, the blockchain is supposed to be like a decentralized product. But what we're doing is actually centralizing information that was decentralized by all the municipalities. So we're using literally a tech to do the opposite of what it was originally designed for. But it's unifying information and it's unifying, like literally the full real estate industry for the US is now going to be in one place, which makes life significantly easier and cheaper for everyone.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point. For me, at this point, when I think of blockchain, honestly, I think of like a database. It's simply where the data is stored. It's just a better way to do it, I guess. But when we talk about the AI side of things, so AI, your AI technology basically goes through all this data and then, as you said, spits it out in a way that can be understood. What happens if it makes a mistake? How do you know that it's not making a mistake? Like what went into the development of this technology?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. The big thing for us is obviously testing, but AI tends to hallucinate if it doesn't have a set tight constraint. So we've ensured that obviously all our prompts, our agents, everything is written with very tight constraints. And we have a flow, a process. You look for this, you go to this, you cross-reference certain documents to ensure that it's the proper person via address, via name, via middle name, etc. Obviously, it's taken a long time for us to get to this point, but training our models for 3+ years, going on to our fourth year now, has definitely helped. But again, the big thing is your prompt engineering is of the utmost importance. If you do not give your AI model a set tight constraints, it will go off the rails, it will hallucinate. And that's where a lot of issues currently lie with hallucination within AI. I mean, you see it every day using ChatGPT. You type in a prompt, and if you're not specific enough, then it's going to veer you into a different direction of what you're looking for. So that is the biggest thing, is obviously training the model, understanding the capabilities of AI. A lot of people think AI can do everything. I mean, it can to a certain point, but it's only as good as its development and developers. And we have a fantastic team. Our team is very experienced in AI and blockchain specifically. So we're very fortunate for that. But we start by literally laying out a step by step guide. And unfortunately, we have to kind of revisit that guide by county or by state, by varying jurisdiction, because those rules do change. Certain information is not needed, certain nuances occur. So it's very important to understand the nuances and then train your model appropriately to ensure that it understands those nuances. And I think that's where everything gets lost in translation, is people just assume, hey, I could set my AI loose and it's going to give me the information needed. But yeah, that's simply not the case.
Yeah, I think whenever like we mention AI being used in these ways, it's the biggest concern is what if it makes a mistake? What if it hallucinates? And you're right, we see it like all the time with ChatGPT. Mine has been doing it a lot lately. I don't know what's changed, but I guess testing is the way to go. What are some other risks that that we face using AI for this kind of information because it is information that people will rely on. And so what are some other risks that are associated with this that are kind of maybe slowing down the progress that you have?
So I wouldn't say it's so much risk as it is a lot of people fear that AI is going to replace jobs, and to a certain extent it will. But it's also going to change the way they work. So, for example, when we sell to an underwriter, someone who has a massive amount of liability, when we sell this data, we're adding a man in the middle to validate the information and basically to interact with our tech to say this information is irrelevant or you missed a document or something on those lines. And that takes us from the high 90 percentile in accuracy all the way to 100. So we're allowing for humans to interact and train the model even better. That way we get as close to 100% accuracy as possible. But in order to do that, you still need people who know how to interface with tech. Um, so AI, like in my opinion, I don't think AI kills jobs. It just changes what the scope of the work they do, and it takes a lot of the grunt work away from them. Which our goal is just to streamline the stuff that no one really wants to do.
Yeah.
Um, so ma maintaining that a man is in the middle at all times and that there's someone validating the information is crucial. And like Tori mentioned, we keep extremely tight guidelines on our models so that they don't veer off and start hallucinating. And till this date, we haven't had hallucinations with the working product. Because we've told it literally, this is your only job and this is all you look at. It doesn't give you weird answers. It tells you very strict solutions.
Yeah, and I think it's important to add to Ori's point there that AI, will it eventually take over certain jobs? Absolutely. But the goal for, I think, AI currently is to streamline processes, create efficiencies, create, margins in companies and stuff like that to allow their people to do things that they're meant to do rather than sift through documents or write, certain emails and this, that, and the other thing. So I think people just need to realize that AI is more of a tool, not the end all be all as of yet. It might get to that point, but we're not even close to that.
Yeah, I think was it Elon Musk or I think it was him. He said AI is not going to take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI is probably going to take your job. And I see that more and more now. I think AI really is just increasing efficiency. I feel like the work I get done now with ChatGPT in a day, it would have been the work of a week before ChatGPT. So looking forward, looking at the future, uh, how long do you think it's going to take for the world to really adopt this kind of technology when it comes to property? I mean, like you mentioned, the UAE, they are storing the land registry information and data on chain. However, the processes of getting the data is still quite similar to the US and other places where it's lengthy and 90% of the time you have to go there physically and try and get the information. So what's your outlook on that? What's your outlook on the future?
So it depends on a couple things. It's a really good question, but the first thing you have to ask is how are you designing the product? How are you building this tech, right? So we've always worked in a way that we don't want to change the way the traditionalists do their work. We just want to create a tool that gives them the answers without having to change their workflow and their process. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to adopt any kind of tech if they have to train new staff to do it. So the better we can plug into an existing process, the faster the adoption will be. So we think the way we're going within a couple months, you're going to already have underwriters pushing data that's AI generated out to clients. When you start talking about an AI title plant and an AI land registry or an AI generated land registry, it's a matter of years before that gets adopted. Because really for us, the priority is gather all this information, which will take us a couple months, maybe close to a year. But once we have that, the product exists, the platform already works, and people are using it, then there's no friction and there's no reason why you wouldn't want to use a cheaper and faster tech. Um, so by that methodology, we're leading by example and building it before getting approval because there's a reason to use it. We're creating an incentive. Um, that I think blockchain typically did poorly. Blockchain originally tried to change the way you do stuff and made you open new wallet, new accounts, new marketplaces, and people were hesitant to use it. In order to get that mass adoption from the other 90% of the market, you have to make it easy. And the product can't be the tech. The product has to remain a value add. So
Yeah.
that's my take.
No, and I kind of agree with Ori there, and I just want to add some one more thing. So there's a movie called Field of Dreams, and one of the most famous quotes from Field of Dreams is, "If you build it, they will come." So that's kind of our mentality behind that is we're building the infrastructure. We prove out the infrastructure, we show the efficiency, we show how safe, secure it is, immutable, etc. We feel that, government, counties, all sorts of different private entities will be coming to use our product. And it's already happening right now, but our goal is to continue to work with the counties, show them that this is a better way to manage their property data. It's a safer way to manage their property data, rather than having PDFs or paper folders or whatever it may be. So that's kind of our mentality as we build this out, continue to build this out.
Yeah. Okay. And so you guys, whenever like we talk about blockchain and property, a lot of people automatically think tokenization. So I want to get into tokenization and get your opinions on it. But before that, for anyone who may be confused, what's the difference between what you're doing and tokenization of property?
So this is Tori's favorite topic. He just spoke on it last week. But tokenization is the concept of fractionalizing the ownership across the blockchain and basically taking a full entity, breaking it up into shares, and then splitting those on into token format. What we're doing is really digitization, where we're taking outright ownership of an asset and minting that onto an NFT. And that NFT basically represents the full document and the full ownership of this asset. So totally different use cases. The way you experience the tech is completely different. What we do is we basically produce property ownership data. We put it into essentially into a package that's under a folio number, and we mint that whole thing onto the blockchain. So when you own that block of data, you own the house. As opposed to what tokenization would do is it would take that block of data and then split it into a million shares and then give everyone a dollar ownership of it. Um, so in order to own that entire document, you would have to buy all the shares, which is completely different to what we're doing. Um, and to date, really aren't that many people who are focusing on digitization as opposed to fractionalization.
Yeah. And as Ori mentioned, I mean, I've spoken on the subject for years and years and years. We've seen some instances where fractionalization and tokenization of, a multifamily condominium may work or a hotel may work. Very rarely does it, simply because you're trying to create liquidity out of a real world asset. The real world asset technically isn't generating any income as of yet. It has a value, but it's very difficult to kind of for traditional investors and traditional people that invest in real estate to kind of see that value right now. So, are there spaces for tokenization? Absolutely. But yeah, we are definitely not doing tokenization, as already mentioned. We are creating, you know, one token essentially to represent ownership of a property with all the property data on it, title, insurance, mortgage, ownership information, etc. Um, but you know, tokenization is one of those hot topics where we've been talking about it for 10 years plus. People are still talking about it as if it's something new. And again, it's one of those things that we will see more of. I mean, we're seeing tokenization of real world assets, gold, silver, companies, stocks, etc. So it does work in some senses, some instances it doesn't work. It's just you have to find that specific project that really makes sense for fractionalization. But yeah, we speak on it all the time. We see it all the time. A lot of people love to chat about it, but we still have not seen that many success stories regarding fractionalization of a real estate asset.
Yeah. Uh, This is interesting because normally when I'm talking to people, especially nowadays, everyone's super like optimistic on tokenization, not just of property, but literally everything. And just today we were actually at the International Music Summit and they were discussing tokenization of like IPs, music, art. So it's very interesting to talk to someone who's a little bit skeptical. And I want to get more on that. Firstly, you said it works for some projects, but for some projects it doesn't. I would like to know why. What kind of projects do you think it works for, and what kind of projects do you think it doesn't work for?
Yeah. And I think to just touch on that, it's not that I'm skeptical. I am a bit, but it's just I have not seen that many success stories. So that's where my skepticism lies. I mean, in the United States, I think we've seen successful tokenization of a St. Regis in Aspen, Aspen being one of the hottest spots to ski, home of, 100 millionaires and billionaires. It's a St. Regis property, very, very, high-end hotel. So it's going to make money. There's going to be want there. So that is one instance where we've seen it work. And that I think again, you need basically from what I see and what I believe, you really need a good brand or an asset in a location that people want to be at. That there's there's going to be liquid or there's going to be income coming into that property or that IP. For example, if you were to tokenize the Beatles catalog, the Beatles are used in tons of movies. They have one of the largest catalogs, probably most expensive catalogs in music. That would be an asset that would obviously, create some sort of income, and you would get some value from tokenizing that. If I owned a piece of it, okay, I know I'm going to get some residual income from there. That's the reason why you tokenize certain things is you want something back. And I think where people get lost is they see, oh yeah, this real estate asset looks good. Let's fractionalize it, let's tokenize it. I'm gonna buy it at $1. The problem is specifically in condominiums and hotels, there's not only is there mortgages involved, there's also maintenance fees, there's upkeep on the property, there's all these different variables that people don't quite look at that really end up breaking down the value of that property long term rather than driving up the value long term. Um, but we've seen some people try to tokenize movies. But I think again, it just needs to be a valuable product. There needs to be obviously want there. There needs to be some sort of income making product for it to be tokenized properly and for the purchasers to get value.
Yeah. So the like I said, many people are tokenizing different asset classes now, which brings me to my next question. Are you guys planning on also expanding on the asset classes like maybe car titles or other forms of data other than property? Is that in the future for title?
Well, so we've been approached numerous times for different things. And one of the things is companies to physically take that ownership of that company, just, create a token of it and being able to transact on that, not fractionalizing it, but using our technology essentially to create the token of company. In the United States right now, California has tokenized their car titles. We've been in talks with other states about doing something similar as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, we definitely be open to expanding our horizons. Right now, obviously, our main focus is on getting this, more mainstream. But never say never. But yeah, we've been approached and we've been asked. And Ori, I'm sure you have some more insight on that as well.
Yeah, no, I think there will come a time where pretty much all physical assets are going to be transacted on chain. It's a matter of time, B, it's a matter of the value add of the product, right? Like I think personally, I think the main hurdle to why digitization or fractionalization never really took off was liquidity. People struggled. So imagine you're buying the rights to the Beatles catalog, for example. Already, the number of people who would be interested in investing in the Beatles catalog is relatively small. Now you're taking that group of people and saying, okay, cool. Well, now people who are invested in Beatles catalog plus people who are crypto native and interested in to owning a token. So you've just cut your demographic by 70%. It makes the liquidity and the interest in the end product much more difficult to get adoption to. Um, the success Tori and I have found came from when we tried to expand the market by changing the user interface to never interacting with the blockchain, never interacting with the token.
Yeah.
Um, we were a blockchain company. We all our data lives on a ledger, but you never see the blockchain. You see a database and you see basically title data and history. You don't see a wallet address. You don't see any of that. Um, and we'll live and die by that, I think. We're going to try to make this user experience as streamlined as possible so we can maximize the adoption. Um, and there are a couple asset classes that this makes a ton of sense for. So cars is huge. Centralizing that data would be massively valuable. I started off in this industry using art as my use case. Um, Sports memorabilia, watches, diamonds, all these things, there is definitely a use case, but the end product has to be as simple and po as possible. If not, you're going to lose people along the way.
Yeah. And just to jump in on that, our previous name, once upon a time, was on-chain listings. And that really hindered our growth initially because people see the blockchain or hear about the blockchain or, they go, holy smokes, you guys are dealing with crypto tokens, et cetera, et cetera. It scares quite a few people off. We've changed our name. And as Ori mentioned, you don't ever know that you're interacting with the blockchain unless you wanted to. You don't even have to have your token. You don't have to have a wallet. You don't have to have anything. And that's where we found a tremendous amount of success is not changing the way anything's done, just changing the way that it's stored. And then eventually changing the way it's transacted. But again, we're going to create it in a way that you would never know that you're dealing with a blockchain. Which again, that's been our bread and butter, and that's where we've found success is just trying to change the way something's been done after hundreds, thousands of years is very difficult to do. It needs to be a slow transition. So again, just being a regular front-facing product that no one has any idea that we're using AI or blockchain, we've grown significantly and we've found a ton of success. So I think that's the approach.
Yeah, I think it also plays into what Ori, I think you mentioned earlier about not changing anything about the system, just like helping make it better. And I think that is a real big key to success because I've seen products that are super simple. Like my dad, he really wants to invest in crypto, but he's so terrified of a wallet. Like he doesn't understand what a wallet is or how it works. And so he never does it. So I think that's quite smart from you guys. Before we end the podcast, tell us what's next for Titl. What should people be on the lookout for?
We have a bunch of huge announcements that we will be rolling out in the next month or so. Um, so keep an eye out for that. We have some big partnerships lined up that will help us expand nationally in the United States. We're very, very excited about that. So yeah, follow us on Twitter, follow us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram. Um, yeah, Ori.
No, I agree with Tori. In the next month or two, we're going to be announcing a lot of big projects that we've been working on, including national rollouts, including policy changes that we've been pushing for. There's a lot of big stuff we've been working on for the past few years. And we've been relatively incognito for the last 2 years. So we're excited in 2026 to really come out and show everyone all this work we did in silence.
Perfect. Well, we're very excited to see everything that's about to come. And of course, we will always be reposting and rooting for you guys at the blog. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's always, always interesting and always pleasant talking to you guys. Thank you.